Hello, listeners. This is your host, Chad Biagini, and this is our last episode of Season 2 of the Excellent Leadership Podcast. I'm already counting down the days to start filming Season 3, but until then, let's take a look back at what an incredible season it's been. We had conversations with great leaders such as JT Batson, Mike Wan, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, Commissioner Steve Phelps, Giorgio Chiellini, and so many more. The season's been filled with wisdom, candor, and inspiration from some of the most influential voices in sports. I want to just pause and say thank you to all of you who tuned in, shared episodes, and joined me on this journey. Your support has made Season 2 something truly special, and I've had a blast doing it. Today, we're ending on a high note, joined by my co-host and colleague, Mark Mayleben. We are thrilled to welcome Shelly Cayette Weston, President of Business Operations for the Charlotte Hornets. Shelly's had a great career, from her days as a standout student athlete at Tulane to her early career in casinos, rising the ranks of the Cleveland Cavaliers and now working at the Hornets. Her path is anything but linear. Along the way, she navigated crises such as Hurricane Katrina, helped shape the Cavaliers into a top-performing business operation, and embraced leadership rooted in culture, resilience, and winning with people. In our conversation, Shelly shares the lessons sports taught her about adversity, how she balances motherhood with leading an NBA franchise, and why she believes culture is as much about performance as it is about belonging, and even how her side passion for matchmaking reflects her belief in building authentic connections. Let's get into it with Shelly Cayette Weston on the Excellent Leadership Podcast. Hi, I'm Chad Biagini, host of the Excellent Leadership Podcast. I'm joined with Mark Mayleben, my co-host and business colleague, and Shelly Cayette Weston, President of Business Operations of the Charlotte Hornets. Shelly, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here and looking forward to a great discussion.
Well, Shelly, thanks for joining the podcast. We're excited to spend time with you. Welcome to the Excellent Leadership Podcast. You've got an awesome career. I mean, today you're president of Charlotte Hornets and Swarm, and you've got a broad remit, but let's not start there. I want to go back, and I've got some stats here. 493 points, 325 rebounds, and 92 blocks in your junior year in college, all while being three-time All-District volleyball player. What can't you do? Tell us about being a student athlete.
That you did your homework. I haven't heard those stats in a long time, nor has my body and my knees, by the way, gotten nearly that high. That's really goes back down memory lane. I look at it as the role that I'm in now, which I really feel like president is just a title for the function, right? A job function, but really, I think my job is to really get a unit of people together, performing at the highest level, and hopefully having fun while doing it, right? We're not saving lives, we're in the business of sports and entertainment. And so a tall order, but it definitely didn't start there, to your point. I do think it started with sports. You mentioned volleyball. I was actually a late bloomer in basketball. So I was 6'1" in 8th grade.
6'1" in 8th grade.
6'1", and I did not play.
I graduated high school at 5'3". I'm 6'1" now, so I had imagine the athlete I would have been. Just imagine.
I still think you had just been great.
Thank you.
Height means nothing. My mom, I remember her saying, of course our coaches wanted me to play basketball and small town, right? And my mom said, look, if you're going to play, you at least need to be good. So I went through this very intense AAU program. Dominoes was the name of it in New Orleans. And I'm not going to say Bobby Knight, but it was very intense. Okay?
Really?
There was a lot of intensity around it. And I really do believe that it was sort of, for me, the ability to join a program, which I was not. I mean, it was culture shock, to say the least, right? You're jumping into just high intensity, high demand, high energy, high performance, high expectations, right? As a middle school kid that was in a very quiet, sleepy town, right? So it was culture shock nonetheless, but I do think it really helped to really transform the role that I'm in today, right? Which is prepared for high demand, high energy types of environments. And so I played AAU every summer. I'd go to New Orleans, which is where it was, spend the summers there. And by the time I was done, had scholarships at colleges, about 70 colleges to choose from. And, they wanted to coach height and talent. They were willing to work with you at that time. And so went basketball route, chose Tulane. And I think I learned a lot just in again, sports, I had actually a very mediocre college career. I went with, again, high performance in high school. And so had high expectations and had the coach that recruited me left right when I got there, my freshman year. And so a lot of athletes go through that, and you go through this decision point, right? Do you stay, or do you go find somewhere else where, you're recruited again? And so I decided to stay. And it was challenging for me, challenging 4 years, but it was probably one of the most fruitful 4 years for me, because I learned how to handle adversity. I learned how to find a role in not being a leader. I think a leader is more than just leading people. Leader is, how do you find your place to make a team and a unit, again, better, right? Which was different than just scoring points. It was an interesting career, but led me nonetheless to first job, which was out of sports. So a lot of people think that I was trying to stay in sports. I actually wasn't. I was like, let's try something different, right? After having played so much time in sports. And I was in the casino industry. At Harris Casino. And so did that for a bit, learned a lot, I think, through database marketing, advertising. And I think people underestimate the power of the casino industry in the entertainment business. Casinos actually know their customers so in depth. They know when they come in the building, they know when they leave, they know how long they're there, they know exactly what they're spending, things they like and don't like, their behaviors. And I was in database marketing, so I was able to build activations around that, around their customer behavior, right? And then that department at the time was Caesars Entertainment. They decided to restructure and move to Tunica, Mississippi from New Orleans, downtown. And I'm from a very small town, St. James Parish, which I love. Shout out to St. James. But I was not prepared to go back to another small town right after college. And so my boss at the time said, hey, the New Orleans Hornets are moving back to New Orleans, and you should go, and they have a career fair. They're moving back from Oklahoma City, where they had moved after Katrina. And I think you'd be great. They're great people. And I literally went to a career fair, which is now Smoothie King Arena, right? But went to the arena. There was a role in marketing, which is similar to what I was doing, and sponsorship, which sounded cool. I knew nothing about, and decided to take the first job I got offered, which is in marketing.
But what a cool story. I'm going to stop you for a second. Yeah. From career fair to president of a team, you wouldn't have dreamed in that moment that would result in where you are today, although it gives hope to a lot of people who might be starting and showing up at a career fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I certainly did not have expectations to be president, right? Not only of a professional team, but of just in general, right? It wasn't out there. You knew about being a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. It was the unknown, right? And so lucky for me, I didn't allow it to limit me for what I could do, but I didn't know, right, what I can do, but I was intrigued by it. I do think going in marketing allowed me to understand the business better, because I was able to understand the pain points, the challenges of marketing before moving into sponsorship a year later. And then, so operating in sponsorships and now managing accounts, I could work with empathy, right? And how it executed the business, and then moved into sales of sponsorships, and then completely ironic path to community investment before moving to Cleveland to lead the sponsorship group. So it's been a journey, but I think the most beneficial part of the journey for me has been being able to live in other areas of the business and understanding those areas to be more impactful, to see how it works together, right? The different units working together.
How did you make that shift from marketing to a more sales-focused, one-on-one type of environment? A lot of marketers don't ever dream of having one-on-one sales conversations. Is that something you were clamoring for? Was it strategic, like, hey, if I go over here, it gets me a faster path up? Or what was that decision criteria for you to move into sales?
Well, I think lucky for me, I didn't hold myself in a box, because I was not in a box of marketing or sales. I actually, I majored in business because I had no clue what I wanted to do, right? So I was like, I love people and I love solving problems, so figure it out, right? So when I went into marketing, because I had done it, and moving into sponsorship sales was intriguing for me, because I didn't know that part of the business. So I really learned sponsorship from managing accounts first, then moving into sales, which is also not a traditional path, right? So it didn't hold me in a box, but I do think the most pivotal point for me in career was actually going to community investment. That I hesitated against. Because for me, I was starting this career down sales, which I didn't know, but then you start seeing the path, right? Coming to these sales and marketing meetings and you're like, okay, there's a path to sales, right? Again, a very important part of any organization, but for me, that was going to take me completely off the path.
Right.
And I was like, I'd worked really hard. I don't see this. And I remember having a few mentors, and my former boss at the time, Tom Ward, our president asked me to take that role. Our head of community investment at the time had moved away from the company pretty abruptly. And so I was in it. It was around the economic downturn. A lot of our sponsorships actually were having to deal with community, or we couldn't justify them, right? So it actually had some connectivity. I didn't see all of this at the time. I wasn't managing people, so this was the first opportunity for me to manage people. And the opportunity was to develop what are our core pillars that impact a city that had been devastated recently, right, by Hurricane Katrina and a lot of other socio-economic impacts. And so and then I was reporting directly to the president at the time,
That's
right?
huge.
So all
That's
those
huge.
things, it would have been another 5+ years to be able to do.
You're still really young at this point.
Yes, very. Again, I had not managed anybody.
Right.
I was really just selling. And so, at that point, my boss was like, you'd be crazy not to, right? And so ability to take that role, I worked closely with our lead contact, who's our team bull rep from the NBA. We worked on a lot of projects together. So the thing that I think is not really a lot public is that was the year that the NBA owned the New Orleans Hornets. Because remember, George Shin was going to sell the team. And so we were going to, they didn't want to lower the value of the property and so forth. So we were owned by the NBA and David Stern for a year. So we worked very closely with the league. So I worked on a lot of projects directly with our president and our, again, Teambo rep and others at the league. So that's how I got close to them. And so when Brad Sims at the time, now the CEO of FC in New York, he became the chief revenue officer in Cleveland. He was looking to assemble his team together to go and really have an impact on that business in 2012. And that's how I ended up back into sponsorship.
With the community role back then, what was it mostly focused on the brand getting involved in various aspects of like building courts, showing up to schools, educational programs, or given that you came from sales and marketing, was there a huge element of working with brands to activate co-branded stuff in the community? Or maybe the answer is both. But was that why you think he maybe chose you to go to community?
It was a bit of both. I'll give you one example. So one, it was creating the pillars. We did do a lot of courts and basketball courts, but it was how do we connect with the actual community to create impact, right? As opposed, because there's one thing you just do courts, slap some paint on and then move on, right? Which I think is not really authentic. But how do you actually create an impact for people that their families and really create a path for them and hope for them? Another thing that happened around that time was the Gulf oil spill. So I don't know if you remember that, but that was really traumatic for the area. Yes. All of Southern region and any families and people that were in that industry, which was a lot of people, right? Middle-class working people that got impacted by that. So we worked with CVS, Walgreens, and some other local retailers to do this Believe in Blue program. Now, don't question the blue. This is one of those things where you're like, the Gulf is not blue, obviously, but it was about getting together for us, the Hornets, to be a platform for them to raise money to go to those that had been impacted. And so those are the types of things that are not just brand, right? That was like, okay, there's a problem here. How can we use our voice and platform to actually be a connection? If just Walgreens did it, it might have been impactful, but not that impactful, right? Or just one of the others. It was about doing it together. In hindsight, back to your question of why I think he chose me, I think, I am my first and foremost goal, no matter what area of business I'm in, is to help solve solutions and move the business forward. And so I think that's been the case. And so I think it was a little bit of that. But also the relationships. I think community investment is no different than finding programs, finding initiatives to help bring people and organizations and areas of business and community together to create impact. And I think we were able to do that at that time in a time of need. is what I would say.
Who did your audience So in sales and marketing, you're usually dealing with a VP of sports marketing on the other line, or a chief marketing officer, sometimes presidents. Who became your key audience in that community role? Was it the head of Boys and Girls Club and Junior Achievement and those nonprofits and brands and community, kind of everyone that's instrumental in moving New Orleans forward?
It's a funny question because I think the answer to that actually is the same audience that I actually have today, and it was both. So literally at that time, who was the head of Chevron, which is Warner Williams, I literally just talked to a couple weeks ago trying to get him to come out. We're talking about leadership. He's written a couple books, and we're literally talking now from those moments, right? Because Chevron was a big supporter of that program, right? Wow. It is definitely, I think about then and now, like, my most recent meetings have been with the CEO of YMCA and different programs and our, food bank. And then, I think about our relationships that we have, for example, with Bank of America, the president. A lot of our conversations are actually not just about business. We figured out the business partnership, and it needs to work, right? There needs to be return on investment. It needs to work. But a lot of what we talked about most recently is that there's an attendance problem in Charlotte and kids. And why is that the problem, and how we can work together to help it? We literally spent 40 minutes at the last game talking about that. So I think the answer is all of it. Yeah. But it's about bringing the business leaders together with the philanthropic side to really be able to create change.
You did a lot of this during COVID with the Cavs. I remember reading stories about how the Cavs worked with local businesses to say, how can we help our workers find other jobs during COVID? Is there anything you can share from those experiences?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, similar to Katrina, you think about COVID in Cleveland. I think about most recently Asheville in the Carolinas and North Carolina. It really makes you see about your platform, and that what we do, we have a responsibility to be a platform to uplift a community. And for COVID, we definitely did just that. I remember very vividly when I think it was the MAC tournament, when it all, everything hit the fan and we shut down completely. And then you realize these are people's lives, right? Sometimes they're waiting for the next paycheck. They're, working, and how do they, feed their families and so forth. So we did a lot of work in Cleveland right away, not only trying to get them back. So what can you do, right? We need to come back as an entertainment business as quick as possible in the safest way possible. But even with that, in the interim, how can these people help, and we help them in turn, right? Support their families and make a living until we get back on track. And that was a lot what it was about in Cleveland. And it really makes you feel the impact that a professional sports team has that is so much more than just what we do on the court or the field.
Yeah, I mean, they are true beacons in a community, and organizations you've been with have made such great impacts. Back up a bit. You're not only a worker, you're a mom, which is also a big, heavy job. So tell us about that. Tell us about your kids. What do you love about them?
Well, you guys can join me in that.
Yeah,
right?
we will.
We talked a lot about kids earlier. Oh my God, they're amazing. I do think they bring you back to reality. I always joke, even with Kobe Altman from the Cavs. I remember him saying once, because he's got kids about the same age, right? Mine are 2 and 5, 2 girls. He goes, I went to a Harvard class in negotiating. I negotiate for a living, and I cannot control the 2-year-old. Right? Exactly. So here I run and operate in a business of 300 plus people, and I go home and I can't get her to eat or certain things, right? Or go to sleep. And so it brings you back to reality. It makes you humble, I think, is one thing. But they're amazing. They're truly, I'd say, my North Star. And they just give you, in my opinion, we've been very blessed. They have a different perspective on life, right? And what's important. And now you're responsible. Not only like you think about P&Ls in a business, but you're responsible for these lives, right? And what they become and what they see, and they emulate everything you do. And so that has been so rewarding in so many different ways. I learn so much from them every day, all day. But it's tough. It's tough in this industry. And I think it's tough in general, regardless of the industry. I still think being even at home and a stay-at-home mom is way tougher. I really do believe that. But it's been an interesting balance. My husband's also in sports. He works with the Yankees and MLB. So we luckily have a system and time frame of our seasons that kind of offset each other, because when he really ramps up in season in the spring, we're kind of winding down in a sense of having games every night and so forth. And then when we pick back up, again, going into the fall, typically, after the World Series, of course, they're winding down. So he's home mostly in the off season, where I'm gone a lot, hence today in an away trip, right? And then when he's traveling a lot, I'm home more. So we really found a system that works, but it's tough. But they are certainly our joy, North Star. And it's been exciting, again, just having both of them.
I always find it's hard to balance the very busy day job with trying to be present dad, present husband. How do you navigate that? What advice do you have for someone like me who's still trying to figure it out?
I am in no place to give advice with a 2 and a 5-year-old, but I would say this, I strive, you strive to be awesome and great at everything, right? So mom, wife, mother, president of a team. And I don't believe in the word balance. I do believe that we manage our lives with what's on the plate at the time, right? Which changes so often, right? And for me, it's changed even over the course of the last 6 months in this new role. And when coming in right away, I had a conversation with my husband, like, hey, I'm actually not going to be present for a bit, right? Because it's a lot. I'm trying to really take on, I take with very importance, and my North Star obviously are these kids and my family, but I also have a responsibility to 300 other families and people. And that's important that we get it right. I think it's a managing, again, day by day, weekly, what's in your life and what you need. Nonetheless, I think as much as I strive to be great at it all, I'm probably mediocre best at some and really good at others at times. And then that rotates. The one that gets the least is my husband by far. So I try to, as much as I can, make up for that. He's the most understanding, though. He's the foundation. He gets it. I will give an example. When I was in conversations with Rick and Gabe about the opportunity, it was a lot. I was working a full-time job, obviously, with the Cavs as chief commercial officer, have a 2 and a 5-year-old. And I just remember I just telling him, I don't know how I'm going to do this, right? I wanted to present a business plan and kind of how I saw vision coming to life. And he literally booked a hotel room for me one Saturday. And he said, Shelly, you're not going to get this done at home. So go. And that was a pivotal piece of even this coming to life, because he saw it. He saw the need. He knew he was going to have to pick up some weight, right? And play a part. And so I'm really lucky, I think, to have him, foundation. My mom lives with us for the most part.
That's helpful.
Very helpful. And his parents help out. So we've got a strong foundation. But, I think the advice is I would tell anyone that's in it is just you have to balance and manage what you need week by week. Because I'm looking out next week and it's a struggle. It's a blur right now, right? We've got, one kid had pneumonia this past Saturday, and, we've got appointments and we've got school, and there's a lot of different things on top of work, and I've got another trip coming up. So we're going to get everything together. We'll get babysitters, we'll get family, we'll work it out. But you've got to manage it week by week and know that I also have some pivotal things going on in the office. So I need to be there. So I need to make sure I manage properly at home. So it's a day by day, but I definitely look at it, I would say outlook by week. What's needed this week? Where am I going to give my most time? And if I was mediocre last week in this space, then maybe I need to go plan a date night and, try to pick up for it and try to be great this week in this space. So
I'm at a stage with my kids where they all think I have a cool job, which is pretty great. So mine are 12, 10, and 7 at the time that we're shooting this. And one of them, my 10-year-old, I can bring to business meetings and trust that she's going to run a business meeting. It's very entertaining. Awesome. Afterwards, she'll be like, hey, by the way, Mr. Greg, here's 3 things that he's doing in his business. She just loves doing this. And a few weeks later, she'll follow up and be like, so how was the conversation with Miss Shelly? And she'll want to know. She genuinely cares about it. It's so cute to see. All 3 are excellent in those rooms, but you can tell she likes to work the audience. And you'll notice this develop in your kids as they grow up.
I love that. How soon can she sign up for an internship?
Right.
It's a fair point. 16, 17, let's get her going.
Is the 5-year-old into what you're doing yet?
She is obviously, I don't know, I do believe in placements of children and their personalities. She's definitely more independent. She's responsible. The 2-year-old is completely, we called her a wild child, but she is so much personality. But the 5-year-old right now, of course, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a president of the Hornets. It
so
goes
cute.
to show you exposure means a lot. So they come to the office and they sit at my desk and they play on the computer. The 2-year-old definitely, again, a free spirit. But the 5-year-old sounds much like of what you're saying. I do think she'll probably be in that more responsible, early learning. But, I feel like I learn a lot from them. They are really smart little human beings. And
Really
some of the things
smart.
that you when they say and you just kind of second
where
down.
did you get that from? Yeah.
Very impressed by it. I've got to say, some of it I'm also like, especially even with the 5-year-old, like, this is going to be a great skill set and trait, just not for me as a parent for the next 18 years. Right?
Exactly.
As far as independence and just confidence. And so it's really great. I do learn a lot from him. So it's interesting and great to hear about your daughter. You can see those things really early.
Well, good segue on advice to maybe your younger self or to those listening. Like, at what stage of your career journey did you get pretty clear vision of like what you wanted it to be? Because you went from marketing to the Hornets and did marketing again, but then went to community. Brad calls you, you go to Cleveland, you're back in sales. At what point did you say, okay, I think I know what I want to do? Because you could have kept hopping around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think I still have a clear vision.
Touche.
I don't. I do remember, I read something from Oprah Winfrey once, and it was along the lines of, when you're on a path, because it's one of more her spiritual pieces, but when you're on a path, when you're veering off, and when it's not the ultimate, right, where you're trying to get to North Star. And so I don't know what that North Star is, right? But I have had moments, and I've been very lucky to be in organizations. I literally will say this from the beginning, from Hornets to pre-Hornets, right? New Orleans Hornets to Pelicans to Cavs and to now Charlotte Hornets, that I've had great people from top down, right? Owners and leaders and colleagues and cultures that have just been, that kind of have, I would say, filled me and helped to kind of shape my journey. But so it's never been anything I was running from, right? Because that to me is easy to move to the next spot. We've been settled. But there have been moments, I remember in New Orleans very vividly, that I felt like, I think there's something more. It's just a feeling that there's something more that I can help contribute to, is what I took from it. And I am very open about this. I was not jumping to move to Cleveland in 2012, right? LeBron was long gone.
Yeah.
The city had not really captured his identity yet and pride and what it does have now. And I had an amazing decade in Cleveland. And the team was barely winning 20 games a year. I mean, it was not the ideal place. People were looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? And you're going in the cold. You don't know anybody there. You're moving away across the country from your family and friends, right?
Yeah.
It was not the ideal scenario.
Right.
But I truly felt that there was something that I could contribute to that. And luckily it all worked out, right? We helped to start transitioning and building structure, process. And then when LeBron came back, unbeknownst to everybody, because that was not expected, we were able to not only grow the business, but sustain it. And so I look at that as opportunity. That opportunity paid it off, right? Got a championship ring, got a lot of different things. But if you were to ask me that in New Orleans, why would you move there at that 2012? Sometimes to me, the vision of what the opportunity isn't always apparent. I didn't want to go to somewhere already established that already had things rolling. I wanted to go somewhere where I can actually have an impact. And I think that kind of guides my decision making along the way, and I think has as well throughout my journey.
So what was the pitch to you? It was like, hey, LeBron just left. We don't really know what we're doing right now. I mean, I'm being facetious, but something must have resonated with you. Like, I want to go do that.
Yeah, Brad likes to take credit for his sales job.
Brad's a good salesman.
Yes. No, I did say no a few times, right? So we'll start. I truly did, partly because of all of those things, right? But when we started really talking in depth about it, this is a great franchise, like good organization, good people, right? Good ownership, and there's a huge opportunity. And I have a very interesting desire to fix things, right? I think that is what I learned. I'll go back to your other question. I think I've learned that about my journey. Like, an opportunity to fix something actually resonates with me. I felt that I could do it, and I actually told him, we joke about it now, because I said, I'll do it in 3 years max. I gave him a hard max. And I said, I don't want to come if this is going to be a problem, right? Again, a decade later.
Yeah.
And a
Tell
great
your husband
career.
that, babe, it's only 3 years, I promise.
Seriously, like, no, you're in this for life. I think the decision point for me to go there was that, I had a good run, good journey, good people in New Orleans, that I could actually put a stamp on this. Like, I could actually go and learn. What I didn't actually anticipate so much is how much I'd learned from the people there and the process there and the environment there. I think that has really helped me to be prepared for this particular opportunity. I went into New Orleans, again, at very entry level, but this was something like, okay, no, you've got to now create this structure of what the department looks like, of who's going to be in it, of goals that we're going to set. And that was an opportunity for me, I think, to really stretch that skill set for me, to do that in a way where it wasn't all roses, right? Like, we had to go through some things. And I think developed strong bonds that last today because you're doing it in a challenging time, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was pivotal, but it really was about the opportunity.
Opportunity to build.
To
create
build
a
and
team.
change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you guys built, it has to be top, or I would say one of the smallest markets, or maybe is it the smallest market in the NBA?
It's not the smallest market, but definitely one.
Bottom
20, 24, 25. Yep.
But top 5 to 10 every year in commercial success now, right?
Correct.
And you helped build that. So what would you say are the key pillars that led to such monumental success in your weight class, much less across the NBA holistically?
Yeah, no, take a lot of pride in that. And look, I would say I learned a lot in the process also. At the time, again, it was Len Komorowski, Nick joined the team. I was able to do things. The thing is, there's no expectations before he got there, right? So that, to me, that's the easiest time that you can over deliver. And I think that's the difference. And the people that I look to hire now and align with are people that are going to try to go over the bench line, over the finish line, even when it's not expected. Right? Because it's easy to hit it and then you're good. Yeah. And I feel like if you're really going to move a business forward, you need those people that actually, when they get to the finish line, they're still running. And that's what we were able to do. When LeBron came, again, I was very, very lucky that we were able to start defining and building what the process, the structure, philosophies looked like before he got there. If we did not, we would not have had sustainable success. I can say that with certainty. We actually reached out before, when LeBron had gone away, like, what did those organizations look like? His peak, and then they, plateaued, and then they went back down. We were able to build sustainable growth to top 8. Again, we were top 2 or 3 when he was there. But to be top 8 consistently after he had left, for me, the day that he got there, and this was probably, again, back to how my mind's wired, internally, not to obviously external, but when he got there, for me, began the countdown of how we're going to sustain this once he leaves. That literally was where my mindset was, which means we're going to have to go and get a lot from a lot of different people, right? Think about housing market. It's changed, right? The demand's changed. What you paid has changed.
Yeah, lock in those long-term contracts.
Yes, and it's going to feel different, right? But we have to go about it in a relationship way. It's also Cleveland, right? It's Midwest. You can't go screwing people over and then expecting, they're still going to be there after. So we had to do it in the right way. By doing that, allowed for us to create that sustainability that after he left, yes, there obviously was some drop off, a lot of more so national, global drop off that were following him. But the core companies and people that were there, we were able to figure out a way to show more return on investment and continue to grow those relationships. So for me, it started from the beginning. And I think the answer to your question is what allowed us to do that. It definitely was a lot about process and people, philosophies and parameters, but people also. And I say that because sometimes you have great people in an organization, but you don't have great processes. So you might see success when teams winning, and that's going to be natural, but you're not going to maximize truly what you can as an organization. If you have right people, if you have right processes, but not the right people, it's going to be the opposite of that, right? You expect more, but you're not going to get there because you don't have the right people to carry it out skill set wise. And so I think when you have both, which is what I think we were able to build in Cleveland, we were able to drive both parallel. And I think that's why you've seen the sustainability there and what we were able to build.
I want to get back to process in a second because I want to dig into there. But let's go to people just briefly, because I think of the Cavaliers, and at that time, Len was CEO, and you were there. You're now president of an NBA team. Brad Sims was there. He's CEO of NYCFC. Mike Toman was there for a while. I don't know if you guys crossed paths, but he's obviously had tremendous success. Len Komorowski, or Kerry Booballs, I meant to say, just a tremendous set of executives. Was that a success in recruiting? You guys just found quality people, or was it a success and we already have good enough people we can develop them and train them? Was it both? Because you don't have leadership trees like that all across sports. This is a pretty unique and special one.
Yeah, it is. It's very unique. And I would extend that to, because all the business leaders that you just named. And then, Kobe Altman, because I came in with Kobe. Kobe's the president, right, of basketball operations. Right. And you had Trent Retton, Mike Gansey, again, leaders on the basketball side, right? I would say, if I was to sum it up, people talk a lot about culture. And I think for me, culture is two parts, because there's culture of the feeling, people want to feel like they're in a strong culture. And then there's the performance of culture, right? Are you actually performing and executing that level of culture of excellence? And I do attribute a lot of it to Dan Gilbert in a way that he had high expectations. Dan, I've heard stories when I got there, and he's been amazing throughout my career there. When I walk into an arena, actually anywhere at this point, and I see a piece of paper on the ground, I'm picking it up. Like it's a natural reaction, right? And that's a part of what's been defined with the culture there. Customers always first, but also about, are we performing? This is what we asked, but can we do more, right? There's one plate in front of me, but how do I get four? And you, like most people would look at that and say, well, that just can't happen. So we're going to move on to the next problem. But in Cleveland, it was, no, we're going to figure out how to create 4 plates. Right? Even though you see one today. I do think it was a culture that helped. And then you were into that culture. So there was an expectation set. And then you hire the right people aligned to fulfill that culture. Culture's not for everybody, that particular culture, right? But it was a high demand, high intense, but always about innovating, constantly about how can we redefine things and make things better. I do think it was just about culture that led to getting the right people there, that kind of created that formula for success.
How do you get that right in an interview process, though, to make sure someone's going to fit that culture? You laugh because we've all not gotten it right at times.
So ask the search professional, right?
I know, right? We just hire you.
Exactly.
And end of the podcast.
That's it. That's done. It's done. It's tough. It really is tough. I often ask, and for me, look, I feel like we've been in this business so long, right? You start looking, and sometimes you just know, right? Through questioning, through interactions, through watching people. That's why I always say, I feel like people are always watching, right? They watch the things that you do and the things you don't even know. And sometimes that it resonates with people in a positive way, right? And it could happen the opposite, but often even in the positive. For me, I ask a lot of questions about people's challenges at prior. What were the challenges that you actually faced at prior organizations? And I know that sounds cliche. I don't care about the actual challenges. I just want to know how they speak about it and how they resolved it. Because if it's someone that's more along the lines of, they talk about the challenges and how it hindered certain things and they wanted to do this, but they couldn't because, I resonate more naturally with people that say, not that they downplay the challenges, but they speak about it in a way that, it was allowed me to be able to do this. And you can't coach that. You can't. I'm not going to lie. I'm very biased to athletes. I love hiring athletes.
Yeah.
Because they've found a way to resolve that and live through that before. Some people don't get to that until they're in their working careers, right? If you're an athlete, you've had to get through that a lot earlier.
Yeah, you get feedback all the time saying that wasn't good enough or that was correct, do it again.
Exactly. And you get experience working with other people in the team, and you're not always the star, right? You got to figure out how to work as a unit, and you got to figure out how to play a bigger role sometimes or take a step back sometimes, all still, right, with an ultimate goal. Most importantly, I'll tell you, the thing that resonates with me the most as I interview people is I want people that don't like to lose. Oftentimes athletes don't like to lose. And I'm not talking about on the court, right? I'm talking about if you didn't hit your goal, does that deeply impact you and you are really pissed off and you're not going to let it happen again? Or you don't like to lose. You don't want to be the last in ranking because it just, you know, that's losing, right? Like where is losing in the business? And really aligning with people that I've been very lucky to have been aligned with people in career and journey that just have a passion and just every day focused on winning. And that is kind of the people that I think that when you align together and you build the right culture with.
I think that, if you look at like a Brad Sims or Nick Bartlage, I think of tenacious. Yes. There's an intensity about these guys. Like they will figure it out and they want to win. And I remember visiting Nick in Cleveland. I don't think you were there that day, but I was sitting in his office and the place was immaculate. Everyone was dressed dapper. The facility itself was, pristine. And you're like, this is the culture. Like people are expected to win here and do things with excellence. You walk in and you walk out, you're like, I experienced something different than when I came. And clearly you had a huge part of that. So congratulations on all the success in Cleveland. I guess to Chad's point about hiring good people though, you can do really well in an interview. Some people are great interviewers and you can also have a lot of wins on your resume. But finding someone that's also a good human being is somewhat more tricky. And are they going to do the right thing at the right time when no one's watching? You've had a good track. We know some of your former direct reports. You have a good track record there too. Do you get into personal stuff when you're interviewing? Like, who are you as a father, or like, tell me what you're doing on the weekends, or do you leave personal stuff kind of at arm's length when you're interviewing?
No, I think it's all on the table. To go back to it's funny that you say that about the Nick Bartlage, because Nick is awesome. And, actually Embrace Your Space Day was a huge point of emphasis in the organization.
Yeah.
And it literally was. And I think this goes back to process, right? When you hire the right people. But because look, I will tell you, sometimes, you've got people and leaders because it's a high demand, high expectation environment. And they're like, hey, we're trying to get to this goal and you're worried about the desk, but it's important, right? It's important because you make an impression, right? It made an impression on you. But those are the details of the culture of excellence, right? You have to be just as focused on your workspace as you are as the deals that you're bringing across the table, right? Or the impact you're making in the community. And so that's the culture that was learned in Cleveland, exactly by what you just said, and under Nick's leadership. So that's great to hear, actually. I'm sure he's going to be happy to hear that and the team there. I think personal is important because I do think and I don't mean like in your business personal, but I do think how you operate personally is also a bit what blends in on the professional end. So you want to know if someone is having challenges, how are they handling life balance, right? Because sometimes if it's a real challenge in personal, like it may also be a challenge in work or vice versa. Good people to me has been the common denominator that I've been very lucky to be a part of. I mentioned Dan, you talked about Lynn, Carrie, like all those people were good human beings, all tenacious and relentless in work and perfection, but good human beings. They cared about people first. And as tenacious and as Nick is, it requires a balance, right? He does care deeply about people. And I was very lucky. I think that helped for me for the transition to Charlotte, to the Hornets, Rick Snall and Gabe Plotkin. Like in our conversations early, it was very apparent. Their vision was very clear. The passion was very clear. But one thing that just really came to fruition is just how much they cared about people, the people side of things. They've lived it over the last 6 months that I've been there. You see it in the people that they hired, and Jeff Peterson, right, that our president of basketball operations, and Charles Lee, who I've not met a human being that does not love him wherever he's been, right? And so you could see they're very intentional about that, about the people side of it. Yes, we want strong performers and we want to create this culture of excellence, but it's got to start with people. So I do think personal is on the table for the simple fact that it does play in together. But I have to tell you, if you ask my best friend of today, she calls it work Shelly and then personal Shelly. Because when I go to work, I turn on, right?
Yeah.
You turn on
Yeah,
and you get in a zone. And then, there's the personal side then with my kids and you kind of, relax a little bit. And, it's just a different side. So I do think there's differences there. But I think how you... for me, I'm a problem solver, whether that's at home trying to figure it out with a 2-year-old or, working, a multi-billion-dollar business and trying to figure it out there. So some of those skill sets, I think, are translatable.
While we're on personal, real quick, I'm curious, how do you maintain consistency at work by some of the decisions you make in your personal life, like exercising, eating healthy, reading books, like just staying sharp in every way you can personally, so that when you show up and you turn it on, you're an elite athlete?
Anytime we're at league meetings, you're always in the gym, though. I know that because the few times I show up in the gym, you're there before I get there.
I actually think the first time I ever met Shelly was in a gym.
Yeah, you accosted her on a treadmill. You're jogging on it. Do you remember this? And I was like, Mark, leave her alone. Let her exercise.
I actually do remember.
You remember that?
The reason
Chad's version of the story is not accurate. For
I just picture Mark throwing business cards at you as you're on the treadmill.
That's where it happens, right?
I'm blushing over here.
The really funny part is I'd love to tell you that there was consistency, but there's actually not for me. I don't want to go as extreme to say that was the last time I worked out, but
that was 4 years ago, just so everyone understands.
Put it on the record.
I do think it goes to, first of all, I think health, mind, body, spiritual is all extremely important for high performance. So, and again, I go back to that. Some call it balance. I call it managing where you are. There are moments where I go clean eating. I've done Whole30 a few times, actually. I think three times over the last 4 years.
Did you like it?
I love the impact of it.
Okay.
And obviously not while I'm in it, especially in our industry. We are in a very, let's grab a drink. As a matter of fact, and because we're close here now, the 2 times at league meetings, people found out I was pregnant because I didn't drink. And I don't drink a ton, but it was a glass of wine. Actually, it was with Lynn. He's like, hey, have a red glass, because he thinks red is healthier. So I say that our industry is about entertaining and eating. And so to be clean eat is tough, right?
It is.
But I think it's extremely important to the balance. I do need to. I actually signed up for a boxing class recently. For me, I love boxing. It's a way for me to really get the energy out, not have to completely kill my knees again, which are terrible. And so that for me is my release. And then when I need to, I know that I can go through a process of, again, eating really well. I think it goes back to the balance. I actually don't do it. Again, I go back to my best friend, which I think everybody needs to have someone in your corner to help push you. She's trying to push me to, you need to go work out. You need to do this. I'll give an example recent, coming to this work trip for 3 days that I'll be gone. I wanted on Saturday to go to boxing, but I know that it was gonna be my last day with my girls. And, now the 2-year-old knows how to play on mommy, mommy, don't leave me, don't go to work, and so for me, that Saturday, I chose not to go boxing. So I'm going to try and get to the gym. We'll see if I get there between today and Tuesday. But I actually work out way more when I'm traveling because I don't have to balance coming home from work late. And then I've got 1 or 2 hours with the girls and those are impactful for me. So I choose them. And I know it's a period of time, right? There's going to be a period of time. So the answer to the question is I think it's extremely important. And I know when my body's telling me I need to, and it's really a mental, hey, it's time. It helps me. I can process things clear. I can make better decisions. I can make quicker decisions. I think I can be there for my team more. I can show up better and not be overly stressed when I'm working out. So I think it's a huge part.
And mentally, do you have any favorite podcasts or books or things that inspire you to get in there and give it your best?
You mean excellent leadership?
Thank you.
Come on.
She's good at saying
We should wrap it again. And that was our show for today.
Did you
2 closing lines for us, Shelly.
I love it.
Softball, knock it out.
No, again, back to the not working out as much as I want to. I'd love to read more. And I do more when I'm traveling, more podcasts and reading.
On planes is perfect.
It really is. I don't go to bed until really late and literally sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock. I'm usually watching documentaries. I love documentaries. I think there's actually the one I just saw last night was Martha Stewart's documentary. But just the empire built and then again that just disappeared. And thinking about those things of, where are those translatable and how you think about a business that you're running now and how do you, proof for some of these things. And there's so much. So I actually really love documentaries, but usually when I'm traveling, more so podcasts, reading books.
Yeah.
So we have to get you out of here because you've got other things to do tonight. So I'm going to transition. We've got 7 questions we ask everybody. We call it the 7-question blitz. So the first one that I have for you is, what sporting event have you never attended that you would love to attend?
So I've been to a championship, NBA championship, as a part of it in 2016. So I was able to rush the court, do that whole experience.
That's so cool.
Ironically, this past fall, went to the World Series. My husband works for the Yankees, so they actually were so grateful and invited us out to the World Series. Unfortunate ending, but great experience. I'd never been to Super Bowl. I'm actually going for the first time.
It's in your hometown.
It is. So how ironic is that? So I'm going to take that off the list. And I'd probably go World Cup. Like, I think football, soccer has such a tremendous amount of just impact with their fans and the experience of the game itself. I think they do a great job at that. And so just in general, I think I would love to experience World Cup, is what I'd say.
You taking the next one, Mark?
Happy to. What 3 other people, living or historical, would you want to spend a day golfing with? Or boxing. We can say boxing if you're not a golfer.
Oh.
Who do you want to punch?
I don't think it was meant to go that
okay.
way. Who do you want to spend a day learning from, enjoying? Picking their brains.
I'm actually going to take you up a little bit on the boxing component, golfing. We're still using, I'm going to use your question. I'm going to say Muhammad Ali. He just at his time transcended the sport, but he also really branched into cultural impact initiatives. And so I'd love to just pick his brain over golf. And then I would just throw in there Barack Obama and George Bush. And I think that would be quite an interesting, if you think about the opposites of the two, right? So Muhammad would be
those together.
Yeah, mix it in. So there you go. I think it'll be an interesting conversation, to say the least.
I love that. I want to join that foursome. That sounds really fun. The answer is probably storming the court in 2016, but I don't want to lead the witness here. What's the most prized memory you've had in the sports industry?
Hands down would be that. Every person in sports strives to get there, right? No matter what league or team you're in, you strive to get there. And so to have been there unbeknownst and unexpected, I would say, to a lot of people, to have gotten there and experience that before and after is just something that I will stay with me for a lifetime, for sure.
What's something about you most people don't know?
That probably my first love is matchmaking. I started a matchmaking site, Simple Introductions, when I was in New Orleans.
For real?
I sure did. The domain just went away about 3 years ago because I stopped paying the domain fee. That was pointless.
No way.
Yeah, I had the logo and started. And
it was an actual business on the side?
Yeah, wow. It was. And then, look, I think we all know sports industry. At some point, you can't do both.
No.
It's not like you can do both.
Any marriages to your claim?
I do. I have one godchild from one in particular. I just have a passion for it. I don't know. I feel like it's a data science component to it, too. Some people don't believe in dating and services, but if you put more people in front of more possible people that they could connect with, the percentages are going to be higher, right? And there's a lot of people that hate the whole process of dating. And so when you can come in and back to the relationship piece, if you know people and really understand, this goes back to again, I'd say you guys do the same thing,
I was gonna
right?
say,
That's what you do.
You should come join us when you're done at the Hornets.
Now
Give Gabe a call. Give Gabe a call and tell him you found a new exciting opportunity.
You found out in public, right? On air. No,
it's a lot of fun.
A passion for it. I really do. I think when you can get people that are amazing human beings and put them together and see fruitfulness happen for people that typically would not have found each other, I find joy at that and find it interesting.
That's really fun.
What is 1 or 2 professional pet peeves? If people work for you or if people want to climb the ladder, they just know not to do this because it irks you.
First one is not putting page numbers. You have a 10-page deck and you in a meeting and then one gets messed up. Like just think you can't that like really, 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 really. I think the team, that's one of the first things they've learned about me since we've gotten there. And then I think it's giving too much information or too little. Oftentimes people share and they want to present this new idea or something. And, it's just this long, huge paragraph email of which you look at nothing, right? It's like to get through it. So really providing concise, detailed, summarized, this is what you're trying to say in, call it 3 sentences, 4 sentences versus, 5 paragraphs. So just that level of conciseness, I think, is another one.
If you weren't in sports, what would be your dream job?
I actually think I'd probably be a therapist.
Back to the matchmaking thing.
Yeah. I really do. I think when I was getting out of graduating, it was like thinking about being a judge or a therapist. I really was in psychiatry.
Very cool.
As a minor, contemplating it pretty heavily. So anyway, you see the connections is really about people.
You love people. You love and solving problems.
Solving problems, yes. Anything to solve problems.
And then next time we're in your hometown, we're going to say New Orleans for this. Where do we need to go to dinner?
So the interesting thing with New Orleans is that since I've been there over now 15 years ago, a lot of restaurants have changed.
I bet.
And so I will give you one of my favorite ones. When I was there, which is an oldie but goodie in my opinion, is Giacomo's. Giacomo's, yep. More uptown. They don't take reservations. You're in an authentic home, so to speak. That's a restaurant. Cool. So the kitchen's like right in the middle, so you got to pass through it. But the food, I think, is impeccable. It's very authentic. And, sometimes even in New Orleans, you can get caught into some of these new restaurants. But it is phenomenal food. So if you have you tried it yet?
I have not.
We will be
Put it
there
on the list
for Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, you'll have to check it out.
Should be fun.
Yeah. Shelly, awesome spending time with you. Thanks for coming this way and letting us just pick your brain. This was pretty easy, right?
Yes, I think so.
We wish you all the best in Charlotte on your new venture there. You're going to kill it.
Thanks. Come and visit. Make sure you come visit.
We will. Thank you.